Because the joy of the gospel, think about it, the joy of God and who he was and how he came when you were naked, when you were cold, when you were sick, when you were dead spiritually. He came, he visited you, and he gave you life. I mean, the least you would want to do in that circumstance, I'm sure, is give back. Be just like he was to you, to others. So, considering that this is not just an optional thing that you can choose to not do or do, any volunteers? I see you. Yeah, you, brother. No. This is something everyone in the church should raise their hand for. You see, the majority world church, they are not materially wealthy, but they are spiritually very rich. Puerto Rico, the area that I had done this project on, portfolio project for the class, is a beautiful illustration of the majority world church and why it is such a significant partner for anyone considering doing humanitarian work overseas or with the majority world church. See, even the World Bank came to realize the importance to the local populace of the majority world church. And the reason is because the whole village in the surrounding two metropolitan areas, the center of gravity is still the church. It's not a bank. It is not the military. It is not the government. It's not family. It is the church. The church is like a family reunion every single week, multiple times a week for villages and communities throughout the whole majority world. And that church is ideal because they have something that is far more valuable than any material possession, and that is the local reputation and substantive significance to be able to really help people, whether it's economically, it is with food, it is with water, whatever the case may be. They are ideal partners. In Hurricane Maria, you see, FEMA could really stumble to response to Hurricane Maria in an adequately timed and structured and organized way. They eventually would get some of their wheels moving, and the many billions of dollars sent there in aid, some 70 actually, that was appropriated by or allocated by Congress. That actually is very substantive and significant. But for the immediate needs, those that were trapped under debris, those that needed immediate water, food, or electricity for life-saving medical equipment and treatment, you see, that's where the church came in. And part of the beauty of it is that the dollar fed through FEMA is about worth 70 cents when it gets through all of its channels to the person who has their hand there. That same dollar sent through the local congregation or church network is not only worth roughly that dollar, but is actually worth, most likely, and in most cases, more than $1. That doesn't even make sense. How can you try to give $1 and you actually are giving them $1.30? You give them 100 and that's $130. Or you give them $1 million and that's $1,300,000. How? Well, because the networks of the churches, number one, they do a lot more with a lot less. They have very low overhead fees. And furthermore, they have a very large reputation in that whole community that even those who are not believers would still turn to the church in the majority world because that is where you go for help. And they know that. People know that. So that reputation goes a very long way. They raise up a whole slew of laborers who want to just swing a hammer for hours or days or weeks even, and all for free. Because out of the love for Jesus, they really want to help people. And so there are so many concrete examples, the contributions from the majority world church and faith-based organizations such as the Episcopalian Church Network, or in this case, for Hurricane Maria, I can think of so many examples, but specifically Caritas Puerto Rico, and that is the Catholic Charities of Puerto Rico. And they distributed so much more than you could even imagine, with so much less than you could also imagine. FEMA was sending billions, whereas Catholic Charity was sending millions. But those millions went to people that FEMA, no matter how much money they tried to shove through the system, just could not reach. In fact, there were even more than just examples like that. There were examples of the United Methodists who had a long-standing cycle of short-term missionary work that was overseas in Puerto Rico. They would send small groups to do labor throughout the interior of the country where a lot of devastation had happened from Hurricane Maria, and a lot of being overlooked also happened. And these people would actually end up getting served better from the United Methodist Church than they would have been treated had they have gone through FEMA. And so the understanding of having the majority world church and the significance is so important, and the impact is so important, because planning trips and organizing some kind of outreach to overseas and majority world church, you have to know the kind of church history, the dynamics. Are you going for medical, or are you going for some kind of material benefit to that majority world place? And so to understand that network, in particular Puerto Rico, is important, because there you can go through, say, the Episcopalians and do some medical outreach, set up some tents interior to Puerto Rico, or even teach and train others to be able to provide emergency medical care. It would be a great way to do a missionary trip. The impact in understanding local and global church is just so necessary, because the World Bank is now turning towards them, and the World Bank is now seeking to have the majority world church actually be the focal point of how they do their work. They want the church to be the distributive arm of their organization, and that is quite a compliment. From Faith and Development by Belshaw and others, you can read that there in chapter 19, the conclusion of the World Bank is that the reason economic development had failed so tremendously was, strictly speaking, because the World Bank was trying to work through the governments to reach the poor people, to motivate them. And so this was perceived primarily as a handout to those that were indeed attempting to do the humanitarian aid and outreach. So that is a huge statement and compliment. Now, training the majority world church to be that bastion to their local communities for development economically is the right answer, but also they need training, they need help, they need laborers there. So we pray that from this message and from this short devotional that I've provided for you, that perhaps you're motivated to do missions, and perhaps you can give back with time or money, resources, or otherwise, and devote yourself to something that all believers are called to, that all of us need to be involved with. So the majority world church is the focal point for the future in the majority world. And that is because they embrace the church with open arms. It is such a significant reputation. It holds such significant reputational weight in their communities that there really is no alternative. You have to go through the local church, period. And that is the end of the story. And also the end of this presentation. God bless you richly, and may He reward you warmly with your response. In Jesus' name.